Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the March 16th, 2026 meeting of the Healdsburg City Council. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Hagley.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Here.
Mayor Herod.
Here. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. No report on closed session. We did not have a closed session. And so we're going to move on to a proclamation recognizing the 40th anniversary of Taqueria El Sombrero. Councilmember Haley.
All right. This is a proclamation of the City of Healdsburg, of the City Council of the City of Healdsburg celebrating the 40th anniversary of Taqueria El Sombrero. Whereas Taqueria El Sombrero was founded on March 6, 1986 by Benjamin and Selena Sanchez. And in the early 70s, Benjamin Sanchez came to the United States from Mexico alone, leaving behind his wife Selena and their young children in pursuit of opportunity and the hope of building a stable and prosperous life for his family. And after establishing work in Sonoma County's vineyards and securing a home, Benjamin returned to Mexico to reunite with Selena and later brought their children to join them, reuniting the family in Healdsburg after years of sacrifice and determination. Benjamin and Selena worked throughout Sonoma County's vineyards for 15 years, demonstrating resilience and dedication while saving to realize their dream of opening a family-owned restaurant. And with the support of their children, Ben and Letty, who helped their parents tirelessly during the early years of Operation Taqueria El Sombrero became a beloved gathering place rooted in family values, hard work, and authentic hospitality. And their son, Jimmy Sanchez, now carries forward the family legacy by overseeing the restaurant's day-to-day operations, ensuring continuity across generations while preserving the traditions and spirit established by his parents. For 4 decades, Taqueria El Sombrero has served not only food, but also community, becoming an anchor of local culture, familiarity, and connection to the heart of Healdsburg's Plaza. The restaurant has demonstrated an enduring commitment to community service and generosity through support and donations benefiting numerous local schools and organizations. And the City of Healdsburg proudly recognizes local businesses whose dedication, perseverance, and community spirit strengthen the social and cultural fabric of our city. And Taqueria El Sombrero represents the spirit of Healdsburg itself, family-centered, hardworking, welcoming, and deeply connected to community history and identity. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Healdsburg do hereby recognize and celebrate the 40th anniversary of Taqueria El Sombrero, honoring the Sanchez family for 4 decades of entrepreneurship, cultural contribution, and community stewardship.
All right, thank you very much. Is there someone who'd like to come say a few words? Jimmy, welcome.
All right. Can you guys hear me? All right. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the City of Healdsburg for all of these years, your guys' support, anything that I ever needed. I can go to any one of you guys and ask you any questions. You guys were always here for me. I really appreciate that. A big thank you to people. This is the biggest thank you is to the people in the town of this beautiful city, Healdsburg, for their continued support. And even after all of these years and everything that has changed in the city of Healdsburg, we've always felt like we belong here. Let's see here. You guys have always made us feel like we're a part of the town and like we belong and we're a staple here. So a big thank you for everyone part of this town. A big thanks to the mayor for reaching out and offering to do the proclamation for us. I really appreciate that, Chris. And of course, a big thanks to every single one of the council members for their time and dedication to the town of Healdsburg and trying to make it a place where we can all be proud to call it our home. Lastly, I would like to thank my family, everyone who made it here, to my brother and my sister who helped start the business when I was not even born yet. So they put in a lot of hard work. And to my parents, of course, who still continue in the business. After all of these years, I'm so incredibly proud to be a part of their dream, their American dream that they started, and for allowing me to be a part of that. And a big thank you to them for trusting me and believing in me in all my decisions that I've made. That's all I have.
Can you tell us a little bit about the celebration you have planned on the 29th?
Yeah, so on the 29th, we are celebrating our 40-year anniversary. We're going to have the local radio station, Radio Láser 107.1, and that's going to be from 1 to 3, and we're going to have prizes and giveaways. It's going to be a really good time. And then later on in the afternoon, we're going to have live music inside. So it's going to be, we're hoping it's nice and calm, but I think it's going to be, it's going to show who we are. There's going to be a lot of people, I think, that show up in support of our business. So I hope you guys can make it there.
Yeah, I'll definitely be there, and I'm really looking forward to celebrating this milestone. This restaurant really is a beloved piece of Healdsburg, and I'm glad we had an opportunity to recognize you guys. Like I've told many people, I think your family's made more meals for me than anybody but my own mother. And I like to share that when my brother and his wife come to visit us from Kansas, they always stop at Taqueria Sombrero before they come to our house. So we're going to do one more proclamation, then we'll have you come up for a photo with the city council in just a moment. Okay.
Good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a proclamation in recognition of National Surveyors Week. City of Healdsburg proclamation, Healdsburg declaring March 15th through 21st, 2026 as National Surveyors Week in the city of Healdsburg. Whereas surveying has been an essential element in the development of human environment since the beginning of recorded history, and its requirement in the planning and execution of nearly every form of construction, with its most familiar modern uses in the fields of transport, building and construction, communication, mapping, and the definition of legal boundaries for land ownership. And in order to accomplish their objectives, surveyors use elements of engineering, physics, mathematics, astronomy, law, history. And whereas since the colonial days, the United States, surveyors have been leaders in the community, statesmen, influential citizens, and shapers of cultural standards. Former notable surveyors include George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Lewis and Clark, Daniel Boone, Henry Davis Thoreau, among many others. And many surveyors are now providing through the use of sophisticated surveying equipment and techniques, including satellite-borne remote sensing devices, automated positioning, measuring, recording, and plotting equipment. And whereas the establishment of the week, March 15th through the 21st, 2026, as National Surveyors Week, is a fitting tribute to all surveyors. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Healdsburg hereby declares the week of March 15th through the 21st, 2026 as National Surveyors Week in the City of Healdsburg.
Thank you. I understand that Mr. Johnson is not here to receive the proclamation. We have a substitute. Great. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Monica Wingett, and I'm the Vice President of the California Land Surveyor Association Sonoma chapter. I want to thank you all especially for recognizing National Surveyors Week. I'm a resident of Healdsburg, and I also work here as well at Munsell Civil Engineering. So this city council meeting is very important to me. So I just thank you all so much. I absolutely love surveying. It is definitely one of those historical careers that also brings in new age technology. I actually had the pleasure to help Curtis and Associates when they closed down shop to grab all of their old deeds and maps all the way dating back from the 1880s. And it's something that our association does is compile all the history of Sonoma County and make sure everything fits together when we're solving boundaries. So thank you again for this proclamation.
Thank you very much. If you want to come up, we'll do a photo then. If you could have the not just family and anybody who wants to come up, it's welcome. Yeah. Come on, everybody.
Want to get in here? Wherever you want to be.
We can fit everybody. He's had big group here before. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no, we'll find space. You guys get in here and then. No, you're fine.
Okay. How are we looking right now? All right, good.
Thank
Thanks again to everybody who came in tonight. We're going to move on now to the Smart Sales Tax Renewal presentation. Suzanne Smith from Sure Shot Strategies will present. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Suzanne Smith. I am a volunteer who is working on the extension of the Smart Passenger Rail Sales Tax Measure. Just to level set, I do not work for Smart. I can't answer detailed questions about the operations of Smart, but I am here to talk about how important it is to the North Bay and how it serves as the backbone for our community in terms of mobility. And I will ask to go to the next slide, please. So happy to take questions after this. I just wanted to make sure it was clear. I'm not here as a representative of SMART, the district. Having said that, though, I do come with some history in the project and could not be more proud to be a volunteer for the SMART initiative. SMART provides an essential, reliable transportation source for many people in our community in Sonoma and Marin. It provides a backbone for which land use planning and housing and commercial development can rely. It helps us with our climate goals, and it supports livable communities. I would note that on that last point, because of SMART, we have seen $133 million in state housing funds come to Sonoma County for affordable housing and market rate housing projects that received various different state grants because of the connection to the train. That's separate and apart from grants that SMART is able to secure because they have a local tax. Next slide, please. So having said that, it's really critical that we ensure the SMART train continue. There was a 1/4 cent sales tax that was approved by voters, and it is set to expire in a couple of years. The SMART board started talking about how to go about renewing it, And a group of us got together, given some new legislation, and decided we would pursue a citizens initiative to ensure the reliability of SMART could continue and that we would be able to go before voters and ask them if they would like to continue to have SMART in the community. Having that regional benefit is critical. We have seen ridership grow dramatically in the last fiscal year. It grew 32%. This fiscal year, it's on track for an additional 25%. We're seeing growth and expansion north, as I think you're all well aware. The next stop is Healdsburg, and the district is in development with those plans and getting that project to construction. Next slide, please. So in addition to providing that additional funding over the next 30 years for the train, the SMART measure also ensures a level of independence in terms of a citizens oversight committee. It's audited annually. This funding source is controlled locally. It can't be taken away by the state or the federal governments. And it has resulted, as I mentioned, in a significant amount of funding coming to this county to help build and maintain both the rail system and the companion pathway system. SMART has secured over $700 million in grants to that end. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So when we took out after this idea of collecting signatures for a citizens initiative to renew the quarter-cent tax, we worked on developing a broad coalition. And what was really heartening is we raised some funds, we started collecting signatures, and we collected 71,000 signatures in about half the time frame we thought we would need. I will tell you, it was an easy sell. Standing in front of a grocery store or Target or whatever it was, people were happy to sign. People who take the train love the train. People who haven't yet talk about wanting to do it. So it's met with very positive response community-wide. We also have a broad coalition that includes labor, business, and environmental groups, along with the local elected officials from throughout both Marin and Sonoma. Next slide, please. So with that, we are going to be on the ballot June 2nd to extend the tax measure for 30 years. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about that process, how we got here, and what happens next. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions, I'd like to just open this up to public comment to see if anybody here may have some questions that you can answer from the public. So is there anybody here who would like to present public comment on this issue? Okay. Seems there is none. So bring it back to council. Who'd like to go first? Councilmember Kelly.
Thanks so much for the presentation. Appreciate it. So this ballot initiative is a sales tax, is that right?
That's correct.
And it's a renewal of an existing tax that is set to expire?
That's correct. So this measure does not raise taxes. It extends an existing tax.
And when you are out in the community or as you guys were collecting signatures, so if it's a signature gathering initiative, that means that the threshold for it to pass, you need how many voters, or what's the threshold?
For a citizens initiative, the threshold is a simple majority. So that ensures a majority of voters would need to support it in order for it to continue, as opposed to the threshold of 2/3 for special taxes where a minority could dismantle the system that we've built.
Got it. And if this weren't to pass, which it sounds like by everything you're saying, it's very likely that it will. But if it wouldn't pass, what does that mean for the future of SMART? Like, can SMART still continue to operate as it is? Is it still coming to Healdsburg and going to keep running trains every day if this sales tax is not renewed?
Great question. And the short answer is no. It would not continue. Transit systems all over the country, frankly, all over the world, require funding on a regular basis. Just like our roads require maintenance that is paid for by tax dollars, transit systems are very similar. So SMART has been very successful, as I mentioned, in getting grants, but operating funds are a different question. So the local tax measure really helps fill that void, as well as match capital grants. So without extending the tax measure, you would look at, I mean, I don't want to overstate, but probably an elimination of the system ultimately, because the operating revenues would not be present. And adding to that, coming further north would be even more challenging, given the operating costs.
And are you seeing that it sounds like there's a pretty broad coalition of folks supporting it on that last slide or second to last slide. Are you looking for support is that why you're here, to seek support potentially, or we're just here to share information?
I would love support for the measure. Thank you. It is officially Measure B. We just learned that last week. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be here to share information about what we are up to and how important we believe SMART is to the community. But I would certainly welcome the council's support. We did get support from the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors last week.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Yeah, I know that you guys have done a great job. You're one of the few transit systems that really recovered from the COVID situation, and really a star on that one. What was the original length of the original?
It was, good question. It was 20 years, which was kind of typical at the time. Some counties in other parts of the Bay Area have done it without a sunset, but that seemed challenging in some ways. So it was a 20-year sunset. This measure would extend it 30 years.
Because it's one of my things in government is we look at 30 years and 50 years where this is really going to benefit the community going forward. And so we put these little short things on that we have to keep coming back. And I really enjoy that the train is coming to Healdsburg. It will add a lot to our town. And I can't see that it wouldn't be in a vital community component to our community. And unlike some other transit stations or transit systems, it's nice to see that you guys are actually growing. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I was able to go to an event for the tax renewal people in Windsor, and I was the coalition was there, and it was really a pleasure to meet people from different facets of the community at large, supporting this this Measure B. Get used to that. And I want to applaud your commitment to labor. Thank you for that. And I just want to reiterate that the train really represents more than just great transportation here and now. It's really, I think, going to become an economic access for the whole region as we move forward. And I think there's a lot in our community who really see that. And certainly as a ray of hope, you know, where there's economic insecurity, to know the train is coming to Healdsburg really does provide us with a lot of optimism for the future. So I think a lot of us here in Healdsburg are grateful for that. So, thank you. Right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, and we're going to move on now to the annual fire department update with our fire chief, Jason Boaz, and fire marshal division chief, Lance McDonald. Welcome.
Well, good evening, Mayor Herod, members of council, city staff, and members of the public. My name is Jason Boaz. I'm the fire chief for the city of Healdsburg. I'm joined this evening with our division chief, Lance McDonald. He's our fire marshal. I asked him to join us so he could go into a little more detail about the vegetation management projects that we've completed over the past couple of years, as well as talk about what we have coming up in the future. I think it's only fitting that since he spearheaded most of these projects, that he's up here to explain it to you in greater detail. And I think what you'll find at the end is how all of these smaller projects that we've done over the years, of which you've been a part of and briefed on, how they all tie together to put together just a bigger picture of our overall fire risk reduction for the city of Healdsburg. So next slide, please. First of all, I'd like to talk about our current staffing. We are still at 14 full-time positions in the fire department. Of course, we have myself, the fire chief, our division chief, Lance McDonald, our office assistant, 2. We have 2 fire inspectors now. I'm sure council remembers last year, we approved a second fire inspector position, which was desperately needed, and this was funded by the Measure H revenue, the half-a-cent sales tax that was passed by the voters of Sonoma County. And so far, it's been a great asset to our department. We do have a new second fire inspector. You may remember we had Hiley Duffy, who was our first one. He ended up leaving the city. So recently, one of our fire captains, John Sullivan, tested for and received the position of our second fire inspector. So that left a vacancy in our fire captain position on A shift. We did a recruitment, and Brian Crabb, who is an engineer, was promoted to fire captain. So now Captain Crabb is the A shift captain. So that left an engine. We currently have a vacancy in our engineer rank, and we're in the process of doing an internal promotion for that, of which all 3 of our firefighters applied. So that process is happening right now. It's kind of a cascading effect. Once that process is done, we'll be recruiting for firefighter, and that will be an open test. We're hoping to establish a list that will be good for 2 years, not only fill the vacancy, but also have a pool that we can draw from the Measure H revenue, which part of it is going to be used for staffing, mostly for Station 2, which I'll go into in a moment. And we still have a reserve staff of about 9. That number keeps dwindling more and more over the years as it becomes harder and harder to find that demographic in our community that can just be a volunteer and stay for a long period of time. Most of the people we bring out of the fire academy, they want to be professional firefighters, and in this environment, the good ones, it doesn't take too long for them to get hired and move on. So that's a constant struggle we have, and we're looking to bring on more reserve firefighters out of the fire academy soon. But right now, that number is pretty low for us. Over the years, we've carried as many as 20 or 25. So next slide, please. I do, however, before we move on, I want to say a big thank you to our staff during these vacancies we've had, because that does create an extra position that needs to be filled on a daily basis. And our staff has really stepped up to fill those positions so that we can meet our minimum staffing of 3 people on the engine every day. So I commend them for that. This slide here is our year-to-year incident statistics. As you can see, in 2025, we had a slight drop from 2024. And I attribute that drop to a change in what we call our deployment tables. And it's mostly for our contract areas, the Sodiomi and Fitch Mountain area. We have a contract for response, which council sees every year for $200,000, which we respond to all emergency calls in those areas. What we've done over the last 2 years, which accounts for that small drop, is we've reallocated the way we dispatch to those calls. So the lower acuity, less emergent calls that are not emergencies, like trees down at the end of Mill Creek or minor flooding, things like that. Northern Sonoma County Fire has been responding to those so we can keep our engine in the station here in Healdsburg. What we found was happening was we would respond out to those calls with the long commitment time, and they would end up coming to our city and covering our station. We thought it made sense to have them respond to those calls in their district and handle those while we kept our engine in the city. So that accounts for most of the drop, other than just year-to-year fluctuations. Last year was a fairly quiet fire season, at least in Sonoma County and Healdsburg. Next slide, please. Okay, these are our incident type categories, a nice little pie chart for you. As you can see, fires are still a small percent of what we respond to. That's almost 3% of our calls. That includes all types of fires, from vehicle fires, vegetation fires, structure fires, all of it is captured in there. Hazardous conditions, about 68 calls last year. Those are the storm-related calls, or trees down, or wires down, fluids in the roadway, things like that. In false alarm, false calls, that's typically fire alarms that are accidental. Service calls, it's kind of a broad category. It includes things like public assists that are code 2, or lift assist, for example, as well as smoke detectors, helping people change the batteries in their smoke detectors or install new ones. Sometimes we do lockouts, small water leaks, and just other miscellaneous calls like that that wouldn't be classified as an emergency, but people still don't know what to do and need some help. Good intent calls, 342, those are typically calls where we're dispatched and canceled en route, or it's the wrong location, or there's no incident found when we arrived. But a large portion of those calls are smoke checks, where we are just responding to somebody calling in smoke. A lot of times that's a control burn or a barbecue, things like that, not an actual fire. And then also odor investigations we get sometimes for, if people smell propane or natural gas or some other chemical and they're concerned about it, we'll go out and investigate. Next slide, please. This is a new slide. I wanted to really highlight the amount of times we're having overlapping calls now. And this is important to me because, as I mentioned, our reserve base has really dwindled. We don't have the ability most times now to get a second Healdsburg engine out the door for a second call in district. So we're relying heavily on mutual aid from Sonoma County Fire District, Northern Sonoma County Fire District, and CAL FIRE. And that just depends on where the calls are. But you can see we had 125 times last year where we had 2 calls working simultaneously, and 4 times where we had 3 calls working simultaneously. And that's where we're relying on our mutual aid. And our partners are happy to do it. We do return the favor, as you'll see, but we are in a position where we're receiving more mutual aid and automatic aid than we're giving. However, I did want to mention one of the benefits of the standards of cover that we're doing and the Measure H revenue, which we plan on using some for staffing the second station. This will greatly reduce this number and help us in a lot of ways. Next slide, please. I always like to put this graph in here. This is a heat map of the concentration of our calls within the city limits. As you can see, the darker the color is, the more incidents we have there. So you can see we run a lot of calls downtown, a lot of calls to the Rivers Bend area, the March Avenue area, pretty spread out around the city. But the one thing I wanted to point out is the darkest color red is up there in the north end, and that is Enzo, that development. So that is impacting our call volume quite a bit. It's a long run from downtown, and that's why we have a station right next door that we're looking to put some type of staffing model there. Not only will it assist with our mutual aid and reliance on mutual aid, but it'll also greatly reduce the response times to that area because it's about a 7-minute run from our downtown station, and it's directly across the street from Station 2. So this is another problem we're working to solve. When we get the standards of cover, we'll have this type of data in a lot more detail. Next slide, please. I just threw this up here. This is the incidence by shift. As you know, we have 3 shifts, A, B, and C shift. They work 48 hours on, 4 days off. This just shows that they're all running. They're all working the same. Next slide, please. Ooh, that's a little hard to see. Sorry about that. These are our response time matrix. The one on the upper left is our unit average turnout time. That's the time from dispatch when the bell rings to the time that the unit is in service out the door. The industry standard is between 60 to 80 seconds, depending on the type of call. 60 seconds for a medical aid, 80 seconds for a fire. As you can see, we're well within that for most of our calls. The top right is our median total response time. That is currently at 4 minutes and 53 seconds. Now this one's always complicated for us because response time matrix depend on a lot of things, not only the type of call, but where it is, how many units are responding, and what kind of personnel you get on scene. But to boil it down, basically the standard is 4 minutes for a suburban area like a downtown and 9 minutes for a rural call. With our response times, at this point, we don't have the ability to really parse out which one of these calls are rural and which ones are like right downtown from the station. In any case, our median response time is 4 minutes and 53 seconds, and our average total response time is 5 minutes and 33 seconds. But I think if you parsed it out, you'd find that we're well underneath the standard in all respects. Next slide, please. This chart is just our dispatch to arrival by year and week. So again, just another visualization of our response times. As you can see, almost all of our response times are between 4 to 6 minutes. There is that one spike at the end, and looking into that I attribute that to the storm days where we had 15, 20 calls in a day, multiple calls working at a time, sometimes 3 or 4, and that really skews the response times as we sort through those. So there's nothing to be concerned about there. That's just kind of a normal anomaly based on the storms that we saw. Next slide. This is always interesting to see. This is our fire call volume by month. So clearly our quietest months are January through April. Of course, it picks up during fire season in summer with a lot of events and a lot of things going on in the city and tourism, fire season, and then into the winter where we have a lot of storm-related calls. It's worth noting, though, that the difference between the bottom and the top of this graph is only 130 to 170 calls. So we're, the variation is only about 30 calls in a month, so 1 call a day. But just gives you an idea of our busy times a year. Next slide, please. This is just an illustration to show you our aid given and received. So 1,606 calls, we didn't receive any aid. 128, that's our automatic aid received. Those are things where our mutual aid resources are dispatched upon dispatch, and they respond immediately. The mutual aid calls are where we request additional resources. And as you can see, the mutual aid given and the mutual aid, or I should say mutual aid and automatic aid given is a little bit less than automatic aid received and mutual aid received. This is a newer trend in the last few years based on the fact that the merger of Sonoma County Fire District, they changed their deployments, so they're relying on their equipment a lot more and not requesting us as much. Same with Northern Sonoma County Fire. So there is a little bit of a discrepancy here. Historically, these numbers have always been pretty even on the amount of aid we received and the amount of aid given. It's worth noting, again, that once we're able to put a staffing model in place at Station 2, these numbers should change dramatically as we're able to cover second calls in district. Next slide, please. Now, talking about our contract areas, I'm going to be a little more brief than I have in years past because I think council's very much aware of it. We respond under contract to Fitch Mountain as well as the Sodiomi area, which is the lower Dry Creek Valley and the upper Russian River Valley. Fitch Mountain's about 3 square miles, and last year we ran 25 calls for service there. In the Sodiomi contract, we did 142 calls for service. As you can see, it's a much larger area at 65 square miles. And this is the area where we're seeing Northern Sonoma County Fire Protection District take on more of the non-emergency code 2 type calls. Next slide, please. Here's a visualization of how these calls have panned out over the last 6 years. You can see there's a small increase in the Sodiomi calls and a small decrease in the Fitch Mountain calls, and overall a smaller decrease in the total number of calls. Again, this is a yearly contract, and we'll be bringing this contract to council again in the next few months. I don't anticipate any major changes at this point. Thank you. Strike teams, mutual aid. While the fire season here in Sonoma County was fairly quiet last year, we did have a pretty active fire season in the state, and our people responded to 5 strike teams throughout the state last year. The Glen Haven Fire, the Lake Fire, the Gifford Fire, the Pickett Fire, and the Garnet Fire. So we had equipment out for a large portion of the summer. And again, I really want to commend our crews. I'm very proud of them. At the end of every strike team deployment, we get evaluations of the crews, not only the strike team, but the individual companies. And City of Healdsburg and our employees always represent well. It's my expectation that when they go out, that they're the hardest working, most professional engine on the strike team, And judging by what I'm seeing in the reports I get back, they're doing just that. So I'm really proud of them. And I'm glad that we can participate in this, as we were on the receiving end of a lot of mutual aid during the Kincaid fire and the Walbridge fire, as you may recall. Next slide, please. I'm going to say just a couple quick things about fire prevention, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chief McDonald. These are some of the areas that the Fire Prevention Division oversees. Of course, inspections and plan reviews, a Coupa program, which Chief will go into a little more detail in a minute. You may recall we did adopt the new fire hazard severity zones for the city of Healdsburg last year. We also adopted the new California and WUI codes. We do our annual weed abatement program, which we'll do again this year and every year. We did a lot of vegetation management projects last year, over 60 acres of prescription burns, which is a new record, and we continue to keep building on that. And as you may recall, as a city council goal, one of the things we've talked about is this new wildfire mitigation software called Fireside. We're in the process of rolling that out. You'll hear more about that in a second. I do want you to know that we do investigate every fire in the city of Healdsburg, and that's typically Chief McDonald. He's a fire investigator. But we do have a fire investigation task force that we can lean on to if we need help. And we do present at numerous community meetings, both myself and the whole fire prevention division, as well as the engine company. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Chief McDonald so he can go into a little bit more detail about what's happening in our fire prevention division.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I appreciate the opportunity to chime in here. And we can go to the next slide. I'm going to dive in a little more granular on inspections. So over 2025, we completed 468 construction inspections. Construction inspections include fire alarms, fire sprinkler systems, fire main underground, as well as emergency responder radio communication. So it also incorporates some of the event inspections as well. So 468 for the year. It's been a busy year of building in the city, as you all know, and that means that our inspectors have been very busy. We also conducted 115 state-mandated inspections, and the state-mandated inspections include e-occupancy or schools. So all of the schools all of the state-mandated inspections are required to be inspected at least once annually, and so that includes schools. For the city of Healdsburg, we have our holding cell at the police department that's required to be inspected annually, as well as our multifamily residential occupancies, or R2 inspections. So those are basically apartment buildings. Those are required to be inspected annually. The last state mandated inspection are high rise. We don't have any high rise, so thankfully didn't have to do those inspections. We also, because of the second inspector edition, we were able to conduct usually 351 business inspections. And this is a program that we've traditionally done in the past, and COVID kind of happened, and we got away from it a little bit, and we frankly had a hard time ramping it back up, finding time to get to the businesses to do the fire life safety inspections. And with the addition of the second inspector, we're able to bring this really important program back online. So that was super successful last year. And then lastly, we conducted 110 Coupa inspections, or Certified Unified Program Agency inspections. And if we go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. So the Coupa program, or again, Certified Unified Program Agency, regulates the responsible handling, storage, and use of, and disposal of hazardous materials. So we're required to inspect at least once annually all of the underground storage tanks. The image you see here is actually of some storage tanks being removed in the city of Healdsburg. So those are underground petroleum storage tanks that got removed. And we're there throughout the whole process to make sure that all the materials are properly handled. And we do this in coordination with the regional water board. All the soils are tested and sampled and sent off to labs. And then we make sure that the soil, when this site is closed, is fully mitigated. So Coupa is responsible for that. We also, in addition to the underground storage tanks, we inspect other facilities. It might be as simple as like the paint store and stuff like that, or more complex facilities like like gas stations or service stations, and making sure they're properly handling all of their hazardous material. And we'll go to the next slide, please. I'm excited to talk a little bit about vegetation management, about some of the accomplishments, and then also look forward a little bit. So the map up there is of the top of Fitch Mountain. You can see kind of the dark area near the purple. That was the outline of our prescribed burn, the first burn on the mountain, and I'm told well over 200 years, a good burn. The little green indicators are all pile burns that we completed on the mountain. The purple area highlights some of the mechanical mastication work we did on the mountain, and then the yellow area are hand crews that were in there. So quite a bit of work done on the mountain, and we hope to continue that. We'll go to the next slide, please. One of the really memorable and impactful moments for me, I think for all of us, and I know some of the council members were able to join this, was we were able to do a tribal burn. And so our broadcast burn that we did on top of Fitch Mountain was actually ignited by a member of the tribal community. And that was a really powerful moment. And we're going to continue to look for opportunities like this when possible. It's challenging to get all of the logistics together and then all of a sudden burn and get everybody there. And it thankfully worked out this time. And we're going to continue to try to make this happen as we go forward. We'll go next slide, please. This picture here, I just wanted to show you. This is actually the next day after the broadcast burn on Fitch Mountain. And you just see that there are burn piles there. So the broadcast burn was long over, but there's still piles of debris on the mountain that we're able to burn for a couple of days after. And so it really does help in cleaning up that debris field there. I know when that debris field is from because I was a part of the crew that made it in 2017. And so it sat up there for a long time, and then we were finally able to clean it up last year. So really, these fires are really great for us. We'll go to the next slide, please. I wanted to talk a little bit about this. This map is of the Fitch Mountain Villa Commons area. The kind of darker shaded area there is our original burn footprint that we've done for the last 6 or so years. It's approximately a 9-acre plot. And we did a bunch of site prep work on the adjacent site that's a little lighter shaded there over the past year. And that allowed us to burn that additional 12 acres. So turning that 9-acre burn into about a 20-acre burn, really bolstering the wildfire defense from that side. So that was a really exciting prospect. Great coordination with the community members of the Fitch Mountain Villa Commons. They provided lunch for our crews, and they're really supportive of this, and we really appreciate the entire Healdsburg community with all of these burns, putting up with the smoke and supporting us as we do this. It's really important work. And we'll move on to the next slide, please. This is a project that my predecessor tried to make happen, and I know that I've been working on it for the past 4 years, and Mother Nature finally allowed us to take place. This is the Healdsburg Ridge Open Space Preserve, and as you can see, we were able to burn. We treated about 36 acres, and then we're able to burn the understory off this past fall. It was a really successful burn with great cooperation. As we go into the next slide, I just wanted to show, in addition to the Healdsburg team, we get great support from CAL FIRE. Our neighbors to the north help us out, but these burns take a lot of people to make happen. On that burn specifically, I think we had 6 or 7 engines. We had 3 chief officers. We had a CAL FIRE PIO flying the drone to take those pictures. We had people from the county regional board there. So we had a lot of people to make these burns happen. And if we go to the next slide, I just wanted to show you that the goal for these type of burns is this kind of low intensity burn where it's burning the understories. We're not trying to get up into the trees and burn the shaded oak, area. We're trying to burn the understory and the underbrush. And that's what this picture here illustrates. And we'll go to the next picture, please. And so if you look at plot A, and plot C on this map. Those are the two burns I talked about by the Villa Commons. Plot A being the one we've done for the last 6 years. Plot C being the addition we were able to add this last year. And if you look up a little to the north or top of the page, plot question mark is our next venture. We're looking to expand this burn and as you'll see when I show you additional maps, kind of bolster our defenses on that northeast side of the town. And this would about double the size of all the burns. It would likely take place over multiple days. We, of course, are already working with CAL FIRE. They helped us to do this mapping. We've hiked this property several times, and we're going to be working with the property owners to make this happen as well. Again, assuming Mother Nature lets us. And so we'll go to the next slide. So this kind of amoeba shape here I drew, the lower area shows you the Villa Commons kind of burn area. The middle of this shape would show you that next proposed burn. And then the upper right-hand side shows you the Healdsburg Ridge open space. And so as you can see, as part of our strategy is connecting these dots and really trying to bolster where historic fires have impacted the city. They come from that northeast, from that offshore wind event, such as the Kincaid fire. This is the area that we were really concerned the Kincaid fire was going to breach into the city limits. And so we're really trying to, as much as possible, give ourselves a defensible space and a calming zone in case of a fire were to come from that area. And then the last slide that I'm going to share here is kind of a larger overview. And if you see, as we're trying to connect the dots, if you go from Fitch Mountain and then all the way up to the Healdsburg Ridge open space, that the plan here is it's fairly simple, but it's to take on these little projects, connecting the dots, and then expand where possible when Mother Nature lets us, as resources are available. And again, all of this wouldn't take place without our friends from CAL FIRE, without the community support and your support as well. So I'll be here at the end if you have other questions, but I appreciate your time and thank you. Back to Chief Boaz.
Thank you. So yeah, as you can see in summary, the biggest fire threat to the city of Healdsburg is going to be a wind-driven fire from the northeast, similar to the Kincaid fire. And what we've been trying to do, as you can see, over multiple years is just create a buffer zone end to end so that we have a place to anchor and fight that fire, or at the very least and reduce the impact and the intensity as it comes into the city of Healdsburg. So thank you, Chief. Moving on, I wanted to talk to you for a minute about the technology we use, because like every other sector, technology is moving at a very rapid pace, and we're constantly trying to stay on the cutting edge of that. I just wanted to highlight some of the technologies we're using. I'm not going to go into these in detail except for a couple. Fireside, I believe the council's already heard of. That's the new fire program that Chief McDonald is working on. Tablet Command is the program that we use on the tablets in all of our units, including the command vehicles, which helps us manage and run fires. One of the nice things about this is I can actually see where all of the units are. And we also have maps. It's got overlays for evacuation zones. It's got hydrant locations. It's got everything that an incident commander needs at his fingertips on a tablet. Active Alert is an app that we use on our phones where all the staff members get an alert on their phone and they can get much of the information on the dispatch, who's responding, the location of the fire, some of the call details. It's a lot better than just the old pager we used to use. First Arriving is a program that we use in the station. If you've been in there, you've seen we have some monitors around the station, and this is mostly for communicating information to our staff, weather, wind, availability of resources. We have fire cameras on there, and it just kind of scrolls through each thing to give the crews kind of an update on the daily situation status. Image Trend is our data management software where we track all of our calls and training. And Haas Alert is something I think I've mentioned in previous council meetings, but I wanted to hit on it once again because I really think it is a valuable tool for firefighter safety. Can you have the next slide, please? Haas Alert, it's installed on all of our engines. And what it is it sends real-time digital alerts to drivers when fire apparatus are responding to emergencies. And they get the alerts on Waze and Apple Maps. And it tells them to slow down and move over because they're approaching a fire incident. it gives those alerts when vehicles are about a mile away. It helps reduce collision and, most importantly, improve responder safety. One of my biggest fears as fire chief is somebody getting hit on the freeway because cars don't slow down very often for accidents. So it tells people to slow down and move over. Another great feature of this is it alerts fire apparatus when other fire apparatus are approaching. So if we're getting a mutual aid vehicle from, say, Sonoma County Fire District, and they're coming from the south and we're coming from the north, it'll alert our driver that we're approaching the intersection at the same time to avoid a vehicle-to-vehicle collision. And year to date, we've notified 13,644 vehicles to slow down and move over to the side. So this comes standard on all, it comes standard on all new equipment, and we installed it on all of our other equipment as well. So it's all for firefighter safety. Next slide, please. And again, the fireside technology, I know Chief McDonald has talked about this. It's a council goal, but it's a digital wildfire risk assessment system. We'll be using it as well as all the other places in the county, all the other agencies in the county to evaluate homes and properties to help make them more wildfire safe. We conduct wildfire mitigation assessments and home hardening inspections using iPads out in the field, and it will generate standardized reports and progress tracking for property owners, provides data and mapping tools to identify community wildfire risk trends, and we can do this countywide. And once all the data is in there countywide, they can also use that for modeling for fire behavior. It does support Healdsburg's efforts to reduce wildfire risk and improve community resilience, and it is a 2025 council goal. It's something we'll be rolling out in the next couple of months. Next slide, please. Just talking about community engagement. As you're well aware, and I'm very proud to say, our staff and our fire department participate in many, many community events, including COPE, the Citizens Organized to Prepare for Emergencies. We go to a lot of meetings and assist them. We again brought on Healdsburg High School interns this year. My personal favorite, the Puppy Parade downtown. We do a toy drive every year. The Bucket Brigade Blood Drive, which many council members and staff have participated in. This one's bolded because it has a special place for me. As you may remember, my first wife, Shannon, was diagnosed with leukemia in 2008, and that blood drive we dedicated to her. It was a record-breaking blood drive with over 233 people donating. Since 2008, we just found out that Healdsburg has collected over 1,000 units of life-saving blood. And this year, just so you're aware, we came in third place. We're always second, third, or sometimes first, but this year we were third place. And so I just want to thank the community and everybody on the staff and council who have participated in the blood drives. The St. Patrick's Day Parade, which is tomorrow, so I'll see you bright and early for that. I don't think I need to go through the whole list, but as you can see down, as you can read down, we participate. Oh yeah, the open house I also bolded because that kind of waned a little bit during COVID and after COVID. And we were able to bring it back in force this last year. In fact, we held it at our new station at Station 2, and it was a resounding success. We had a number of people from Enzo there who asked a lot of really intelligent questions and really had a lot of great face-to-face. We also, of course, invited all of our partners from Bells and CAL FIRE and everybody else to come be a part of that. So again, this is something we'll be doing every year, and I was really proud to kick it off again this year, or last year. Next slide, please. Just a couple of pictures of the community engagement. This here is a picture of our open house. Next slide. I think we skipped over one really quickly, but that's okay. Okay, things we're currently working on and expected in the near future. As you're well aware, we're in the process of doing a community risk assessment, standards of cover, and strategic plan for the fire department. We contracted with AP Triton to conduct this study. There's three components to it. One is the standards of cover, which is the bulk of it, which is basically the data collection. We're going to get very granular on all of our data, from response times to turnout times to responses to different parts of the city to our contract areas. We're also doing a community risk analysis and a strategic plan that's going to be fire department specific. The progress to date, we have completed the data collection, all the GIS work, which is a lot, and a lot of mapping. We did do a community survey and internal staff surveys, and they did one-on-one internal meetings with the entire staff. Next steps will be our strategic planning session, and then we'll be getting a draft report, hopefully with some recommendations, and then we'll be bringing that into budgeting and using that to plan for our deployment of the Measure H revenue that will be coming into the city of Healdsburg. The report right now is about 60% complete, and I'm not going into great detail here because you will be getting a presentation to council at a future meeting that will be only on this study, and it'll go into great detail about all of its findings and recommendations. Next slide, please. Also, and I know we've talked about this too, the city is currently doing a space utilization and condition assessment for both the police and the fire department, and just an update on where we are with that. It has three main components as well: the conditions assessment, a utilization study, and cost estimating. It includes deferred maintenance on our current station and capital projects to improve use of space for our current needs and future growth. It is in draft form right now, and I expect that you'll see a full presentation to council pretty soon on both of these for the police and fire department. It's worth noting that Measure H revenue can be explored to fund enhancements or improvements to our current fire station. My understanding is it'll be completed in the next couple of months and will be presented to the council at a future meeting. Next slide, please. This is another thing I wanted to talk about, kind of a cool thing that we're doing here at the fire department. We're working with First Responder Resiliency Incorporated. And if you haven't heard of them, it's a company founded by Susan Farron about 7 or 8 years ago. And I've been working with her ever since. She's based down in Kentucky and is currently building the first ever firefighter or first responder resiliency center in the country. Their goal is to provide first responders with the necessary skills to improve resiliency, because we spend a lot of time hiring first responders and training them on the front end to respond to calls and to use their equipment. But what we don't train them to do historically is to deal with the stress and the trauma that they see over a 30-year career. And firefighters have about a 30% higher suicide rate than the rest of the population, as well as divorce rate and historically problems with substance abuse and alcohol abuse. The goal of first responder resiliency is to provide first responders the tools at the beginning of their career or wherever they're at in their career to deal with these stressors so that they can work a full 30-year career without suffering the difficulties of post-traumatic stress or family or relationship problems or substance abuse. So first responder resiliency's goals, and I think they're being successful at this, is actually put this in as part of the fire academy because it's never been there before. The most expensive tool we have are our people, and we need to take care of them, and we need to give them the tools on the front end to get through a career healthy. And I'm happy to say that First Responder Resiliency has offered to beta test their program with our department. Now, they do a 3-day retreat out at the Bishop's Ranch, of which many of us, including myself, Chief McDonald, and a few people on our staff have been through, and we plan on putting the rest of our staff through it. It's a comprehensive 3-day retreat. But in addition to that, they want to beta test their program with the fire department for a 90-day period to get some empirical data that how the different modalities they use in their program actually do change the way your brain works and your body works and make you more resilient to deal with the types of things we deal with in a 30-year career. So we're going to kick this off pretty soon. And when we're done, we will be designated the first resilient department in the country. So as I mentioned, the program will begin in the next few weeks and will include resiliency training across all the shifts and all the personnel. It is voluntary, but I expect full participation from my staff. So I'm excited to see where that goes. The most important thing is to keep our people healthy and happy. Next slide, please. So just things we have looking ahead to deal with this year. All exciting, good stuff. We're currently doing an engineer promotional exam. After that, as I mentioned, we'll be doing a firefighter recruitment. We'll be completing the standards of cover and doing planning for Measure H revenue, coming up with some staffing models for Station 2 and figuring out what works best for us based on the data we get from the standards of cover. We'll be implementing the resiliency program here shortly. You may recall we do have a new Type 1 fire engine on order, but it was a 4-year lead time from the time we ordered it. So I don't know, I think we may be close to 2 years since we ordered it. Hopefully we'll make some progress on that soon. The facilities and conditions assessment study. We will continue to do our vegetation management work and prescribe burns and hopefully expand it. And as we've talked about, and I believe as a council goal, we'll be doing the wildfire mitigation assessments using Fireside, and that's in addition to our weed abatement program, which will also be tracked in that software. And we will try to continue onboarding new reserve firefighters as we can from the Fire Academy to enhance our reserve staff. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation. I'm here for questions as well as Chief McDonald. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for such a thorough presentation and update. I always appreciate this opportunity to know more about what you're doing. And so thank you very much. Let's see if we have any questions or comments from the council. Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you for the thorough presentation. I had a question for you, Division Chief McDonald. You talked a little bit about reinstituting some of those business or commercial inspections, not the Coupa inspections, but the ones where you're going in and kind of proactively meeting with those commercial businesses and doing those inspections. Can you talk a little bit about what it is what you're looking for, or what a typical inspection looks like, and maybe something that, an example of something that you've uncovered? Obviously, no one's intentionally not, following code, but just out of curiosity, why is that a good use of time, and is it important?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So just to give you some example, it's a fire life safety inspection. And so that incorporates things like fire extinguishers. If people are using wiring or extension cords for a permanent solution, they're the typical things that we know start fires. They're charging batteries in a place they shouldn't. Now with the lithium batteries, they shouldn't be charging them. They're using multi-plug adapters on top of multi-plug adapters. If they're fire sprinkler systems, they install these fire sprinkler systems. If those aren't serviced, or their alarm systems aren't serviced, they're supposed to be serviced annually and then every 5 years as well. There's kind of a more complex. And so most agencies do these inspections at least annually. And we, like I said, traditionally have, and got away from it basically from COVID and have just trying to get back in place. So what I would anticipate going forward is the number will kind of level out as we kind of caught a bunch of people up with the inspections this last year, and now it's going to be more of an ongoing, more consistent inspection basis.
Great, thank you. Chief Boaz, you talked about the standards of cover study and kind of looking at a fire department strategic plan as part of that. Do you know when you think that will come back to the council, and you anticipate that it would be in conjunction with the budget process, or prior to or subsequent to? Do you guys have a sense of that?
Well, it's certainly our goal to have that part of the budget process. I can't say with 100% certainty that the entire study will be done by then, but my goal is to have at least the data collection and the recommendations done so that we can consider them during budget.
Great, thank you.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Yeah, I know 3 years ago when we were talking about the north end of town, you were kind of doing some estimates and thinking in your head about the Enzo calls. How is that going? Are they on track, below or above of where you were thinking they would be?
Well, based on the study we did from MRG before the development was done, they predicted it would generate about 351 calls a year. I think they were spot on because it seems like that's where we're at. We're typically 1 a day, sometimes 2 a day, and then one the next day. But I would say it probably averages out to about 1 a day.
Okay. And then on Chief McDonald, you mentioned the lithium batteries. Is there a guide, a website that businesses could go, or even residents could go, to know how to safely store and charge those batteries?
Yeah, there are quite a few resources. NFPA offers a few resources on lithium battery safety. what I will say about lithium batteries is that not all batteries are created equally. Some are higher quality and really safe, and some are, less high quality and can be more dangerous. The way you store them, the way you charge them, some will automatically stop charging at the right time. Some will overcharge. Obviously, if they're damaged, that's also an issue. So yeah, but I would refer people to NFPA, NFPA.org. They have tons of resources on lithium batteries.
So I guess the takeaway of what I'm hearing is don't cheap out on your lithium batteries, that the quality, you're really getting a difference when you're paying a higher fee for a lithium battery as far as safety is really what you're gaining at that higher price.
Yeah, I would look where it's made and who constructs it and make sure it's a well-made product. Yeah, for sure.
All right, thank you for that information. Very informative.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the report. I'm very impressed in all the hard work you do and the professionalism about you go about your work. It makes you always feel proud to be on the city council in the city of Healdsburg. So I just want to say that. Also, the first responder resiliency program, that sounds wonderful. I'm really pleased to hear that that's something that's out there and that we get to be part of. Because yes, that's the health and well-being of firefighters is really critical. So good for you on getting that. I had a couple of questions too, though. So what kinds of calls are you getting at Enzo? Or is there a typical call? Is it illness, that kind of thing?
From what I'm seeing, they're mostly medical aids, a lot of falls,
Okay.
sick people, that kind of, it's
Okay.
typically medical in nature. Occasionally a fire alarm, but the vast majority being medical calls.
And that was expected when you were talking about with Vice Mayor Edwards' question that you kind of had a number in mind and that they had come up with. So that's not surprising.
Yeah, that can be expected from any residential care facility, especially one of that size. And that's why we commissioned a study with MRG. And turns out they did a pretty good job because their numbers were right on.
Okay, great. So the Station 2, the standards of cover that's going to, I think you said this, but it's going to inform how you're going to potentially staff up Station 2?
That's correct.
So one is dependent on the other at this point?
Correct.
Okay.
So the Measure H revenue coming into the city is about $1.5 million a year. Of course, that money will be spent on other things, including equipment, vegetation management, things like that. But a very large portion of that should be going to staffing. And the standards of cover and document, our hopes is to provide us with staffing models that we can use up there based on what our call volumes and our data are, so we can utilize the revenue to the best of our ability to staff that station.
Okay. And are the Measure H funds, they haven't been distributed yet, or have they?
Some of them have.
Quarter or whatever?
Council approved the addition of one fire inspector position, the second fire inspector position. We also used some Measure H revenue to outfit the Station 2 with different technology.
Mm-hmm.
And as well as the standards of cover itself was being paid for by Measure H, and a couple other small items with outfitting the fire inspectors with PPE, and we just purchased a vehicle. Am I missing anything? I think that's pretty much it.
Great. And then just one other question about vegetation management funding. Was that coming through the
Coastal Conservancy.
Coastal Conservancy? Yeah. So is that, or how are those funds looking these days?
Those funds are gone.
Okay.
So we closed the Coastal Conservancy grant out. It was really successful. I will say that with Measure H, there'll be some of those funds will be used, is slated to be used for vegetation management, as well as helping us to pursue additional grants, et cetera. We've applied for a couple of other grants and haven't been successful. We're working with an RCD on a grazing grant currently, and some other opportunities. So we're always trying to find different sources to fund these projects, but Measure H will also help us to get quite a bit of this work done. And then I'll also just say, with the relationship we have with CAL FIRE, they have hand crews now that are coming back online that early in the season, you can schedule them out to do some of the hand crew work, and we're working with them already to do that work on the Healdsburg Ridge, some additional pile burns, et cetera. So trying to be creative in how we use all the available resources to get that work done.
Great. Thank you. Thank you again.
Councilmember Higley.
First, thank you for everything. I really like seeing the response times where they were. That's really good. Quick question that I had is, I know the weeds in my yard grow back really quick. So how often are you needing to, it's great we're doing all this fire mitigation. And I know the one, I think you had it going and then I think it rained later that afternoon. It was like perfect, right? But I'm wondering, like, how often do you have to go back and reburn?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I mean, that's the challenge with vegetation management, is you're only as good as your last burn or your last work, right? It comes back quickly. So yeah, this is an annual program. What I will say is, from the citywide projects we've done, some of the areas we've treated, even though if you weren't able to burn them again the next year, you still have some thinning that is existing throughout the following year. But absolutely, you kind of have to stay on top of it. It's one of those things. The other component is, to safely burn. In a lot of these sites, we do a bunch of prep work so we can safely burn. And by burning and then continuously burning, year after year, that's continues to make it a safer and safer product. But you brought up your own weeds, and I'm just going to take that opportunity to say that in the next couple of months, we're going to be starting our annual weed abatement inspections. This is going to be one of the years where people are going to have to cut multiple times. We had a lot of rain, and then now it's going to heat right up, and there's probably going to be a little more rain at the end of the month, it looks like. So we're going to be looking at multiple cuts for a lot of people, I'm guessing. So just be prepared for that, and we need the community to do their part as well. We're going to work hard to keep up the work in the foothills. Thank you for that question.
Right, thank you. So I just wanted to commend you for your attention to your staff, and I saw that in two ways. One was the promotions that are coming from within. It's always a good thing to see that we are able to take advantage of folks who have experience and drive and dedication to our department, and to move them up. So thank you for that. And I also am really grateful to see the First Responders Resiliency Program happening in Healdsburg. I think that's really important. I commend you for embracing that approach. And quick question on that. Do you know, is that just firefighters, or does it also cover police officers, that program?
Yeah, that's a great question. They cover all first responders. In fact, they started here in Sonoma County, but now they're nationwide. They're flying out. They're training Capitol Police. They're doing law enforcement all over the area. Cal Fire. They're teaching at the Ione Academy. So no, it is certainly law enforcement, fire, dispatch, EMS, any first responders. I just kind of focused on fire because that's what we are. But
Sure.
If you go to the conferences, it's a big mix of law enforcement, EMS, dispatchers, firefighters.
Well, it's probably long overdue. So once again, thank you for that. And we definitely, as a community, are grateful for everything that you and your whole team do for us. So once again, thank you for the report and for all the hard work you do throughout the year.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. And
Did we have any other
members,
questions, or no? Okay, thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, we're going to move on now to city manager reports.
Mayor,
Yeah, I'm sorry. We can do public comment on this one too. Sorry. It's a presentation. I was a little mixed up on this one. So if there's anybody who'd like to do public comment on the fire department report, you're welcome to at this time. Okay, seeing none. Thank you. All right. Moving on then to the city manager report.
Thanks, Mayor. I just have a couple of quick updates, reminders mostly for you all. The first is that applications are open for the Community Advisory Committee, as part of our station area plan. So anybody who's paying attention and interested, please check that out. For council members, if you can help us spread the word, that would be great. The applications, this is going to be as we talked about at a previous meeting, a fairly robust effort over probably a couple of years, definitely a couple of years. But we're looking for people who are willing to go on that journey with us and provide really important feedback into that process. The application window is open for a while. It's open until April 3rd. Our intention at this time, depending on what comes back, is to bring at the second meeting in April. I'd say that's tentative just in case, but our expectation is that we'd come back to you with an item to make appointments to that committee and potentially also to approve a consultant agreement for the consultant to run that study. The RFP period did close a few weeks ago. We had a robust response, so our staff is working through that. A few things could change and things might move around a little bit, so it's not critical that those two come at exactly the same time. So I'm being a little bit careful, but both are moving. And again, most pressingly for the community is that we do have this application window open for another few weeks. So we're excited about that. Also still open for a bit is our budget engagement. We're going to do another push. We've gotten a pretty good response, but would love to get more. As a reminder, we have different tiers of participation. People can do the long budget exercise online. We have a short paper survey, which has actually done quite well so far. And there's a shorter version online. So there's all sorts of ways that people can engage, or you can do them all, which I think some people have done, but we're going to make another push and try to get one last burst of engagement on the budget process. And then a few calendar things the chief mentioned, you all know, but just a reminder if anybody's forgotten, tomorrow, 7 a.m., St. Patrick's Day Parade. We look forward to seeing you all out there. And then this coming weekend, we'll have an opening celebration at the Foley Family Community Pavilion, a pop-up farmers market in the morning on Saturday, the Vamos Market in the afternoon, and then the Community Resource Fair is Sunday. You may recall that's an event put on by our housing department, so really a housing focus connecting people to affordable housing and housing support resources, but it's expanded. We partner with Corazon, we partner with the library. I think we're expecting about 30 different social services providers from the region. So it should be a big turnout. Really important partners and information, but also we'll mix in some fun. There'll be some kids activities. There'll be a live performance. There'll be some food. So we'll try to mix the important, helpful stuff with some fun as well. All told, it'll make for a really busy weekend right across the street at the pavilion. So we're excited about that. Well, I think that's it. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Busy month marches on. Anybody questions for city manager? No? Okay, we're gonna move on to public comment. I just wanted to say thank you for anybody who's here for public comment, who's waited until fairly late in the meeting, and this has happened a couple of times. And I know we've had some discussions about moving some of these longer presentations later in the meeting, so folks didn't have to wait as long. So if you're here for public comment, thank you. Public comments on items on the consent calendar and non-agenda items. This time is set aside to receive comments from the public regarding matters of general interest, not on the agenda, but related to city council business. Pursuant to the Brown Act, however, the city council cannot consider any issues or take action on any requests during this comment period. So is there anybody who'd like to come forward for a public comment? Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Mark McMullen from Parkland Farms, and I'm with C Cubed and Caldera. And tonight, I'm here on behalf of the Healdsburg's cultural and arts community. We want to let you know about something that's happening in April all over the state, but more importantly here in Healdsburg. Every April, California celebrates Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month. This statewide recognition that cultural and arts are not extras, they're essentials. They strengthen neighborhoods, support young people, improve health and well-being, fuel our local economies, and build the kind of belonging that makes our community feel like home. This year's statewide theme is joy, action, and power. And frankly, that framing feels especially important right now. And of course, Healdsburg is showing up for it. The C Cube group, Creativity, Culture, and Connection, is bringing word art to our city for the entire month of April. It's a citywide celebration of language-based arts, poetry, spoken word, storytelling, open mic, film, and word-based pop-ups woven through our galleries, shops, restaurants, our library, and more. Some events are planned, some will appear unexpectedly. All of this is designed to create a subtle but steady creative thread running through everyday life in Healdsburg, something that residents will see and visitors will notice and follow and talk about. This is Healdsburg participating in a statewide movement. Our local events, most of which are free and open to everyone, directly reflect what California is asking communities to do. Show up, engage, and celebrate creativity as a form of freedom and connection. So look for our announcements on social media, on the city website, and other sources. The word will pop up everywhere. We'd love your support in spreading word, and we'd be honored to see you at the events. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward? Welcome.
Excuse me. Good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Jess Ascoop, and I'm the current president of the Healdsburg Future Farmers Country Fair. And tonight I'm here on behalf of the other 22 board members that I work with to present a letter to you guys, the Healdsburg City Council and Parks and Rec Department. I also provided your council assistant with a copy of the letter to present to each one of you. The letter reads as so. Dear members of the Healdsburg City Council and Parks and Recreation Department, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Healdsburg Future Farmers Country Fair, it is our great pleasure to inform you that you have been nominated to serve as the official parade marshals for the 2026 HFFCF Twilight Parade held on Thursday, May 21st, 2026, which proudly kicks off our 77th Healdsburg Future Farmers Country Fair. For generations, the Healdsburg of City and its Parks and Recreation Department have played an essential role in supporting the Healdsburg Fair that brings residents together and celebrates the agriculture heritage of our region. Your continued support, partnership, dedication to community programming, and commitment to preserving local traditions make you especially deserving of this honor. Serving as parade marshals is a cherished role in our annual Twilight Parade, recognizing individuals and organizations whose efforts strengthen the spirit and vitality of the Healdsburg community. We would be honored to recognize the Healdsburg City Council and the Healdsburg Parks and Recreation Department. We kindly ask that you let us know at your earliest convenience if you will accept this invitation to serve as the 2026 Twilight Parade marshals. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you, as always, for your continued support of the Healdsburg Future Farmers Country Fair, the many traditions that make our community so special, and the deep roots of the agriculture industry.
Well, we're not allowed to take action on anything, but I would like to forward a very extra hearty thank you for your comment, and I'm sure you'll be hearing from us. Yeah, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward for public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment then and move on to the consent calendar. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Higley,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Yes.
Mayor Harrod.
Yes. All right, thank you very much for that. Moving on to public hearings, there is none, no old business, and for new business, we will move on to the City Council Manual of Procedures and Protocols with City Clerk Raina Allen.
Good evening. I'm just going to pull up the PowerPoint here. Okay. Tonight, you will be receiving a presentation and discussing the city council protocols. Before we begin, though, I want to take a second to thank the subcommittee comprised of Councilmember Mitchell and Councilmember Kelly for all their hard work in updating these draft protocols for your review. Staff in the subcommittee have met quite a few times over the last few months, and I know myself and Assistant City Manager Mitz appreciate all of your hard work. A little bit of background information for you. The City Council established updating the City Council protocols as an adopted fiscal year 25-26 goal. In August of 25, you formed a subcommittee comprised of council members Mitchell and Kelly. Since the formation of that subcommittee, the City Council has discussed 2 items related to the protocols. One on October 20th regarding ballot measures, and the second one regarding remote participation on January 20th. The subcommittee and staff have met 7 times since the formation of that subcommittee. The first meeting took place back on September 3rd, and the most recent meeting happened just last week on the 9th of March. The recommended action for you this evening is to provide feedback to the subcommittee and staff on the recommendations presented in the staff report and other areas that you may want to consider. For the presentation, we have classified the updates to the protocols into 3 categories: administrative, reflect current practice, and updated or new language. The first category up for discussion is administrative updates. Administrative edits to the protocols include updating the language to reflect gender neutrality throughout. Closed session and study session references were removed as items that are covered in the Brown Act. Other edits include removing items that were duplicative in other sections of the protocols. The second category this evening is in the protocols is updating to reflect current council practice. Some of the updates include the agenda content and order was modified to reflect the current process for agenda content and order. Approval of minutes was moved to the consent calendar. Language was removed from public comment on items on the consent calendar and non-agenda items to reflect current practice. And we cleaned up the language regarding the process for presentations and discussions of agenda items. Continuing with the updates to reflect current practice, public comment was adjusted to add clarification. We removed the reading of minutes and removed the duplicative language regarding the enactment of ordinances. To continue the reflecting current practice, the public hearing section was cleaned up to reflect the current process. Section 7A and 7B of the protocols were amended to clean up the language on how council correspondence is received and handled at City Hall. And Section 8A was amended to reflect how requests for information from City Council are processed. Getting into the more meat of the protocol update, this is where we'll discuss the updated or new language proposed in the protocols. On this slide, language was amended in section 1E titled Meeting to be Public to be more concise. Section 2A, Preparation of Agenda and Agenda Packets, was amended to reference the Brown Act and remove language that is no longer current. Section 2B is an item that I'd like to draw your attention to, placing an item on the agenda. The protocols were amended here to make an adjustment to how items may be added to an agenda. The current practice is a council member requests an item for discussion be added, and a majority of the council needs to agree. The new proposed language will allow a council member to request an item for future discussion to be added to the agenda and will only need the concurrence of one other council member. Essentially, the proposed amendment removes the council majority requirement. Section 2B was also amended to allow the city manager to skip the subsequent meeting if it is determined that the item requested does not require significant work and staff can just move forward with preparing a staff report. Continuing on, section 2E8. Again, this is another item I'd like to draw your attention to. Consent calendar items was amended to update how an item may be pulled off the consent calendar. Currently, the city council requests an item and needs the majority to pull an item. The proposed amendment will be allow any council member to remove an item for discussion. Section 2D9 was adjusted to combine new business and old business into one item, making it business items, allowing kind of more flexibility for agenda content order. And then section 4, correspondence, was adjusted to reflect current practice and new Brown Act requirements. Here, section 6A was adjusted to define what a supermajority is. 6C was adjusted to reflect legal requirements for recusing from an agenda item. And then section 7A is another item I wanted to bring your attention to. It is proposed in the protocols that we switch from the clerk preparing summary minutes to action minutes. Currently, we are the only jurisdiction in Sonoma County that still does summary minutes. The other 8 Sonoma County cities have moved to action. So in the protocols, we have added that in there and then again, approving them on consent versus as a standalone item like we've done in the past. So the changes on this slide to the protocols include adding a maximum number of proclamations per council meeting. The current number proposed is 3. Updating the language regarding city council goal updates to receive updates on a biannual basis. Defining what an ordinance and a resolution is. And then adding in the language on district elections and the positions on ballot measures that council had discussed previously. Again, the recommended action is to provide feedback to the subcommittee and staff on the presentation or other areas for consideration. And then based on the discussion this evening, the next steps would be to update the protocols to reflect city council direction and bring the protocols back for adoption on the consent calendar. Before I conclude this evening, I want to give the subcommittee a chance here to add their thoughts, feedback, or share any insight on the items presented this evening. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the city clerk? Then let's bring it back to council members Kelly and Mitchell. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, so this process was quite illuminating, and we spent a lot of time on the details, but I got to tell you that the staff, both April and Raina, have really done the heavy lift on a lot of this and keeping track of all of the changes so that during this meeting you can kind of really focus on what's happened and what the recommendations are. And I think we also wanted to honor the fact that the council had indicated you wanted to talk specifically about Zoom meetings as well as the ballot measure questions. So those So we brought those prior to this. Of course, those are still open for discussion if further discussion is required or, if you'd like to. So, yeah, I just feel like we've really honed in on this. We made sure we got all the Brown Act changes in there. So hopefully this will be a good document for council and new council members to be able to follow on the procedures. So I'm very thankful for Raina and April on this one too.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yeah, thank you to staff and appreciate Councilmember Mitchell's participation and comments. And I think just to give you all the assurance that for pretty much every single one of these changes, it was either because it's in there, but it's not currently in the practice of the council that we're doing this thing. So we're basically, these are the protocols of how we operate, but we're not operating that way. And if it wasn't rooted in the Brown Act or any specific rule, it was almost like, why did we make up this thing that we're supposed to be following that's not actually how we are operating? And so in a lot of ways, it was intended to kind of be current with the practice of how the council operates, in addition to, because the Brown Act has changed so much, obviously adapting our protocols to fall in line with the Brown Act. And then also looking at some of the practices that were in here and questioning, for example, what Clerk Allen just said about the action minutes versus longer minutes, like, comparing ourselves to the other cities in Sonoma County and saying, how do they do it? And realizing, oh my gosh, we're the only city that's still doing something in such a way. And so trying to kind of go modernize or align ourselves with what's common practice amongst our other cities in the region. So a lot of these changes were really done very deliberately with a lot of thought and research involved, and are not being presented lightly. They all took quite a bit of time, and each single one had, you pulled one thread and then like 17 things unraveled out of it, and then you had to figure out how to put it back together again. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hegley, do you have anything you'd like to?
I just have a couple comments, but I can wait till after a public comment.
Sure. Nothing right now. Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak on this item for public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Councilmember Hegley.
Sure. Let's see. Yeah, I think this is long overdue. So I appreciate the time that you put in with the staff to really clean this up. And I mean, we've seen over the last couple of years, the number of changes that have come to just general rules that come out of Sacramento to make sure that we're on top of it. I appreciate the clarification on the correspondence, because that's something like, I know when I get an email, I try to reply and then copy the city manager. I'll start to add Raina as well. But I figure if it goes to Jeff, it probably goes to Raina. It was nice reviewing those because, to your point, we get in a routine and, sometimes it's not exactly what's in there. But I appreciate that. A couple of the changes that I'm just curious that I'm not quite sure I support. And the first is placing items on the agenda. So I was on council when we specifically made that a majority requirement. And it's because we literally got to the point where we do council goals and it'd be like, oh, let's put this on the agenda, this on the agenda, this on the agenda. And pretty soon, city manager at the time was just like, listen, we have this much capacity. We plan out for this to go on. So every time you want to put something on, we need to pull something off. And it really put the brakes on us as council members that might have been, inspired by whatever the item of the moment was to like, oh, I need to like speak up and we need to agendize this. And it really not only slowed things down, but really distracted from the items that were really well thought out with council goals. Now, there's always exceptions. We had a couple of urgency ordinances that, we went through when things are really crucial to get on the agenda. So I would prefer that to stay with the majority, especially, if we've got a Brown Act. We're subject to the Brown Act. So, Councilmember Mitchell and I could go, well, let's put this on the agenda. All right, I'll do it. Boom. And so I do like the idea that no, there's a little bit of a Yeah, maybe not, but I mean, majority of the time we all tend to like say, okay, yeah, that sounds good. So that's one comment. The other one is on the consent calendar, to reduce to any council member. And I feel that should remain unchanged and require a majority to pull an item. Kind of my thought process is, and it says both in the protocols and in the consent calendar, it says, consent calendar items are considered routine in nature or have been previously reviewed by the council and require little or no further discussion by the council, public, or applicant. And so I look at that as number one, when I see consent calendar items from my side, I look at that as there's an expectation that we've done our homework and we've asked any clarifying questions of staff prior to the meeting. So we're not waiting until the meeting to then pull an item to ask a question that might be to, I don't know. It just seems like unless a member of the public is specifically asking wanted additional questions or clarifications on something, I think for us, we should do our homework prior. And then if there's still something that needs to be discussed, then it's, get the council majority to kind of pull that for discussion. And but it's just my opinion on those. And again, it's about council majority, so I'll support the majority. But those are kind of just the only two things that I had. Other than that, I think this is, like I said, a long overdue update, and I really appreciate, like even with the minutes, just getting us kind of in line and just, things that have kind of crept out. So that's it.
Thank you. Let's bring it to Vice Mayor Edwards, and then I'd like the subcommittee to respond to some of those comments afterwards.
Yeah, I just had a couple more for clarification, and if this protocols is kind of an SOP on how we work. Under the attendance section F, I know it's a little more complicated now on how, if we're not feeling well, how early we need to notify, what needs to take place if you are, if you know you're in the hospital down, you won't be making a meeting as opposed to getting sick that morning. How do you go about making that situation? I didn't know if there was a difference in the protocol on that. And then on public comments, F section C, for protocol and decorum, I think it says council members and staff generally will not respond to individuals. I think it should be shall not respond to individuals making public comment. And then in section 2 of that, in aligning with what the mayor reads for public comment, I did not, in the protocols, it says subject matter jurisdiction of the city. And I think that might be good to add that into the written, the verbal presentation that the mayor makes, so that it's very clear to the public that it's subject matter jurisdiction of the city. So those are my three.
Before we go to you, I'd like to hear from the attorney about that question of moving to shall, and because I imagine this probably was floated by you at some point.
Yeah, I reviewed these and some of these changes I suggested actually. Can you, Councilmember Edwards, can you say that section again?
Section FC, under public comments.
Okay.
Page 9.
F1C.
F1.
Oh, yeah, F1C.
I think my number, oh, here we go. Councilmember and staff. I don't remember if that was Raina or April or I, but the reason I would suggest that change is, oh, wait, I think I'm looking at the wrong one. Which one?
F1C.
Okay, I think, but Ron, that's not what you said. You said it changed from, you'd like it to go, it went from will to may. You'd like it to go from may to shall?
No, it says council and staff generally will not respond to individual comments.
Okay. Oh, you'd like to change generally to,
To
or
shall.
will to shall? Or-
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm with you.
Shall not. Take
Okay.
generally and will out and shall not respond to individual comments.
Okay, got it. So I bet I wrote that just looking at the words. That's kind of the way I write. And so the reason I would suggest you not say shall is because there are times that the Brown Act actually allows the council members to respond during public comment. Those times are limited. It's usually to make a correction. It's to respond to, I think, a discrete question. Councilman, it's not a great practice to respond during public comment, but it's not, there are certain narrow circumstances in which it is permitted. And so I wanted to leave you and future councils a little bit of room there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to Councilmembers Mitchell or Kelly. Just wait. Yeah, I'll wait. Okay. Yeah. So who would like to go first?
So in terms of the comments that Councilmember Higley made, just in terms of responding, so we looked at the protocols of all the other cities in Sonoma County and some of the agencies like Sonoma Clean Power, SCTA, Zero Waste Sonoma, about what is the typical organization, how do they deal with consent items. And generally speaking, it's really up, the city manager is typically who decides when an item's going to be put on consent. Typically, it's not the mayor who's making that decision. And so 90 times out of 100 or 99 times out of 100, Jeff gets it right. But occasionally there is an item that gets put on consent that there may be an interest in further discussion. And so it's really, I think, the idea is that a consent item is supposed to just be something, as you said, routine in nature, has already been discussed. We have a separate item on the protocol that says council members will make best efforts or endeavor to, and I'm wrong here on my language, but that basically is you have to ask your questions of staff in advance unless it comes up later from the dais or otherwise. So those two things are separate. We still have to make best efforts to, get our questions answered from staff before the meeting. And that's not what the consent, pulling an item from consent is intended to do. So I agree with you and we agree with you. And that's why it's in there separately that we have to ask questions of staff in advance of the meeting whenever practicable. I think the consent item is basically that it shouldn't require a majority of council members to get a more thorough presentation on something because ultimately we're the ones making the call on approving a contract or approving, an official action. Most of the time on consent, it's clear and easy, but occasionally there are things that, maybe the community has concerns about, or, you're reading it in more depth and realize, and so giving the flexibility to pull the item, typically it's not a majority. You're not saying, I want to have a majority who's ready to vote no. It's, I'm seeking more information. And having a majority agree to seek more information is not typically what any other agency does. So that's the nuance, I think. It's not asking for a majority who's willing to vote no. It's willing to daylight and provide more transparency about an item that whoever the council member is, wants to see have not just kind of that easy, I don't want to say rubber stamp, but an easy stamp of approval versus let's have more information presented.
And I completely understand that. I think just based on my experience and what I've seen over the years, especially when you have newer council members that come on, there's I don't want to call it grandstanding, but there's, council members have been known to pull items to, I really want to, say whatever they want to say. And it seems to me like really we're focusing on the content of it, and we should do our homework before and ask questions. And so, like I said, that, it says here they're considered routine in nature or have been previously reviewed by the council and require little to no further discussion by the council, public, or applicant. So just in the context of what's written there, that's where it seemed to me like, well, it seems fair to just keep it at a council majority. So that it's just, my opinion.
And then the other one that you brought up was about getting an item on the agenda for further discussion. So I think there was this practice historically where when council wanted to put an item on for future discussion, the first thing that would come back would be like a staff report that staff had put energy into and spent time on. And so our goal and what we had talked about previously is if we as a council want to request, or an individual wants to request to put an item on that for the next meeting or a future meeting, there is no staff time that goes into just having that first conversation, so that we don't get into the practice of, I'm requesting to put this item on and now I'm going to explain the item even though it's not on the agenda, so I can convince 2 council members to agree to put it on. And we've basically discussed the whole thing, which is the whole point of what you're not supposed to do because it's not agendized. So the goal being to have it be a little bit easier, one less person required to agree to have a conversation at a future meeting, but that conversation at a future meeting is not intended to burn staff time.
Okay, that's fair. That makes sense. And I agree. And I remember the council meeting. I think, Sam, you remember it was something about vacation rental tax or some item that somebody asked, and it was like a big report for taxing vacant lots or something. And it ended up being a big, heavy lift. And that's where it kind of resulted in, hold up. We need to have a discussion to see if we want to do this heavy lift or have staff do it before they do that. So, okay, thank you. I withdraw my comment or whatever the protocols say I need to do.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I was just going to add one more thing, or do you want to?
We'll go ahead and wrap up and then we'll
Okay.
move to Mitchell. Yeah, I'm sure you do.
The language around subject matter jurisdiction of the city in terms of the general public comment on non-agenda items. And I was curious for City Attorney Zettler if we can add that language. We added it in the protocol under general public comment that members of the public can address the council for items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. We don't currently have that on the blurb that's written on our physical agenda, and wondering if that is okay to make that change. Okay, I would suggest that we make the change in both places so that we're both doing it for our protocols, but we're also letting the public know via the agenda that that's that. And then Councilmember Edwards, or sorry, Vice Mayor Edwards, you had said something about the getting sick on the attendance and the Brown Act requirement. Can you explain the question a little bit?
Just how, I know that there are different rules with the 72 hours of posting, how it works with Zoom interaction, that if a council member, I believe I don't know if that rule rolls down to cities below 30,000 and counties below 40,000. So if you are sick the day of, you don't have to do a Zoom comment. It doesn't trigger that, is what I was curious about.
I think it's like the just cause provisions
Yeah.
under the new version of the Brown Act, when you can say, I'm taking care of an ill family member to participate remotely, but that's only if you allow remote public comment, which we don't
Okay.
allow. So.
That is correct.
Got it. Clarified. Thank you.
Okay.
So I think, Vice Mayor Edwards, it could be that what you're referring to is, I think that somewhere in here, and the clerk might correct me if I'm wrong, is a provision that says that you'll let the clerk know as soon as possible if you will be out. And that's really that's assuming that you will be appearing under the old rules whereby your location is noticed on the agenda. And so that's just to give the clerk an opportunity to work with you to get the notice up at your remote location.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you. Yeah, to respond, even though you've withdrawn your question, I struggled with the removing the items on the agenda, removing that or moving that down to just 2 from the 3, because I think your comments are true, that there was concern that we were adding a lot to the agenda. There was a period in time where every single council meeting, there'd be, I want to agendize this, I want to agendize that. And the concern for staff time, our current goals, all of that was an issue. And So, and we need to get on the council goals, we need a majority of council to get goals on the goals, right? So we're gonna start doing that soon. So, I mean, I think your argument was pretty strong, actually, for keeping it at that. I guess if we somehow can get council members, I don't know whether we can beef up the language or something in there that to recognize that, you know, this is an important part to not just keep, you know, the latest, you know, like you said, the latest thing. Oh, you know, there's a squirrel, let's go chase it, you know, that we need to be really cognizant of that. So I'm not sure whether or not we can add language to that effect, you know, for council to be really clear on in what kind of a situation you can add to the agenda and the goals. Because otherwise it can get out of hand, and it was getting out of hand a couple of years ago. I remember cringing every time we got to that point. So I kind of think your argument was fairly good on that one.
How about if we suggest this, we do it like it's outlined. And then if it's not working, there's 2 council members that can agendize a discussion on switching it back to the majority.
Change it, yeah.
And then it gets put on the calendar and we have a discussion. All right, let's change it. So I'm willing to try it. I share the same concerns just because we've lived through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on, we're good council.
We lived through, well, and councils change, right? So, also, talking about the consent, pulling things from the consent calendar, I agree that, you know, if it's rare that someone wants to do that, and usually that's because there maybe is a community member who has gotten, or members who have asked questions that we want to clarify, and I think that makes sense. But I also think we need to really emphasize the part to endeavor to get all your questions answered. You know, maybe it should be bolded or something. Right? So, you know, so the intent of these things makes sense as long as the council is sort of following, you know, the rules, which we're doing here. So I think that's an important piece of that comment. And the action minutes, I think, are fabulous. That's going to make a huge, huge difference. So those are my comments.
All right, thank you. First of all, yeah, great work on this. Really, a lot of detail went into, a lot of attention to detail is present here. That's obvious, and I think we can pat everybody's back by having chosen the right people for the job. You really were perfect with your length of experience and I think your legal know-how and so on. I think it was really a good combo. So appreciate what you put together here. And I was generally in agreement with just about everything I saw here. And I appreciate the conversation on a couple things that have changed here. I think in terms of pulling things for public comment and adding things to the agenda, that there's a time consideration there. That's sort of the most important consideration. And that I know that and we're trying to think into the future, but the current city manager does a great job of recognizing what the time constraints are, or the burdens of different asks from the council, and being clear with us when it's a lot, when it's, what it's going to take to get something done. And I think it's his or her responsibility to communicate that with the council. So even though we have authority, I think that's a responsibility that most councils will respect. But that is sort of does fall on the city manager to say that, adding this agenda item, adding this to the queue of things that the city's working on is really going to impact all these other things, and so that we can have a reasonable assessment about what we want to do when. So I think the suggestions as they came through, the changes are good, and I think they allow us more flexibility, and I think that the council in general will benefit from a smaller lift on changing additions and pulling stuff from the consent calendar. And also just to recognize what you mentioned, that this is not set in stone. It's not a huge lift if we needed to go back and fix it. I mean, it's not something we don't want back and forth on this, but I think these changes are really reasonable. So once again, thank you for all the work that you've done with this. I'm not sensing there is any particular, well, I'll need your help on this, but that there's any real need for a change after we've debated this. It looks like we're probably going to move forward with the changes that have been suggested at this point.
So I still would like a majority to be able to pull an item from the consent calendar, but I am fine to leave the agendizing for discussion, because I do recognize I'd like to agendize this, have two, and then we have an empty agenda item. So I'm fine with just that one change to need a majority to pull a consent item for discussion.
Yeah.
If there's a council member who thinks that an item on consent needs to be daylighted for better transparency or for better public understanding or for a more full presentation of that item, I don't understand other than we want to move the meeting faster. I don't understand the concern about ensuring that that information is being presented in a way that we can get questions asked if they haven't been able to be asked previously, knowing that we have to, we endeavor to the extent possible as council members, ask them in advance of the meeting. But if you couldn't, or new information has presented itself in that amount of time between the item, I'm kind of shocked that it's like that there is this feeling of like wanting to not allow a member of the council who's elected by the community to be able to put an item up for broader discussion for providing the community with more information, or that we get to have a more constructive dialogue on a particular item if we're voting to spend the city's money or the public's money or entering into a contract or anything that's on consent. Thinking that needing a majority of people to pull it for a conversation feels to me like we don't want to allow greater dialogue. And it's like an intention to shut it down, which feels to me like the opposite of the goal of transparency of what we're doing publicly.
I mean, that was a very extreme way to frame it, especially in the context of, again, I go back to consent calendar items are considered routine in nature. And if they're not considered routine in nature, I would assume the city manager would place it on for discussion. And more than that, it's been previously reviewed by the council and requires little or no further discussion by the council, public, or applicants. I think that goes
Based
back
on
to
thoughts though, right? It's Jeff's decision, which I think he does a great job of deciding what goes on consent and what doesn't. But our city manager, sorry, I'm calling you by your first name, City Manager Kay, is not elected by the community. He is a wonderful leader of this organization, but sometimes I think there is a disconnect between the community's expectation and how we kind of run the standard business of the city. So yes, if it's considered routine in nature, and most of the time it is, but occasionally there's things that come up that even if it is routine, we still want to have a conversation about it.
Well, so I think that's where then I would go. I mean, this is absolutely transparent. We're dispersing, the agenda gets posted, the public gets a chance to look at it. We have public comment prior to the consent calendar where members of the public have an opportunity to ask for this to be discussed. We can get emails asking for it to be discussed. It's very easy for you to say, hey, we have a member of the public that wants this discussed. How do you feel about it? And then if the council majority says, yeah, no, got a request from the public, I think that's important, or I feel like that to me is the appropriate way to, I'm not judging whatever that individual agenda item is, because we do have transparency, we do have opportunity for the public during public comment on consent items and non-agendized items within the jurisdiction or whatever we're adding to it. And so I don't take quite this isn't about hiding things, or it's just, I feel like just going back to what is on the consent calendar. And I don't need to read this multiple times, but it's really considered routine in nature, or have been previously reviewed by the council, meaning we've had a public discussion on this item, kind of vetted it. That's how it ended up on the consent calendar. So, if there's a disagreement where during the public vetting process, I'm really for something and, what I wanted didn't get on there, I'm not, I don't think it's the right thing for me to pull it to reissue all my complaints about it, or, anyway. So that's just where I'm at.
Go ahead.
I think that, part of this conversation is setting the guardrails. And hopefully there is institutional knowledge that is held on why we came up with this. And I do agree with a little lesser than majority, because there are sometimes that you will get emails or questions about a consent item like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I would hope that since we've had this conversation of what we're trying to avoid, that again, if we find that it's out of control or a future council, it will only take 2 to agendize that to work on this item. It's not like we're leaving it broad and open. I can see the advantage of those late questions that come in before we have a chance to ask the city manager, or that the public is just concerned that they waited till the last minute.
Well, and I want to be clear, my comments aren't about stifling public comment and hiding things and all of that. This is a transparent process. It's a public meeting, it's a public agenda. To your point, if you get emails or we have a public comment, it's completely fair to say, hey, I've got somebody that would like us to pull this. I think that's a fair way to approach this and leave the 3. But if I'm in the minority, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
This is about transparency. I take issue with the framing that was kind of proposed with that. That's not where I'm coming from at all.
So I'm sensing that you are in the minority in this case, unless Councilmember Mitchell's had a change of heart since she worked on the protocols.
No, sorry. Yeah. I think the arguments are all solid. And I don't want to be that person who could, either way, but I think that it makes sense for a council member to pull something off the consent calendar if they feel it needs to be. I think that makes sense to me. I'd actually be the other direction. I'd rather see the 3 to agendize something versus so, but even in the discussions during the protocols, I was okay with this, didn't totally 100% think that maybe, but I think the point that if we find it to be a problem, maybe future council ends up not following the protocols and with the intent that we have behind them, then maybe somebody would bring it up and maybe we'd want to change it back. I think the 3, the agendizing of with the majority of the council was specifically done because there was a council that was abusing the situation. And so we're trying to lighten that up, make it easier for council members to make decisions about these things. So I'm fine. I'm okay with what we wrote in the protocols. I think the arguments that you make and everybody else has made are strong, but I think we should stick with what we propose here.
Okay.
I can support that.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other loose ends on this? Otherwise, I think we have direction solidified. You getting a nod from the city clerk. Anybody else have anything more? Okay, great. Well, this is, go ahead.
So then I think
Yeah.
our next step is that we give direction to bring this back as a formal item that we adopt. Is that right?
Yes, tentative plan would be to bring it back as, for adoption on the consent calendar.
I'm comfortable with that. I think we're good. This is an excellent point to come to in our city council. So, and I think it will serve many future city councils quite well. And so, thanks again for all your hard work, everybody, on this one. And moving on now to council reports on matters of interest occurring since previous regular meeting and potential future agenda items. But we need 3 votes still.
Nothing
Right?
to report.
Yeah. Who would like to go first? Ariel?
So just really quick, we had our Sonoma County Transportation and Climate Authorities meeting last Monday, and the award and disbursement of funds for March Avenue and our funding agreement for March Avenue came forward on the consent calendar. And then we are framing up the new funding program for the 5 priority items that each city and 10 items that the county submitted for funding for those. That'll be happening this summer. And then we had an item talking about what the mascots program was. You maybe heard about mascots. It's an acronym that basically is a funding swap. So we are going to be having a very large increase in service for the SMART train and a decrease in service in Sonoma County for the Golden Gate Transit bus. And so starting in the next month, there will be a pretty tremendous change, the largest change in how we've apportioned these funds since 1996. So very big deal. And so you'll be seeing some communications come out about that. And because it's such a big change, and especially for people who've been riding the bus, the 101 bus, or for people who ride SMART and are looking for increased headways. So if right now there's, say, I'm guessing like an hour between trains, it's going to be much less. So the SCTCA is asking that we, in our individual capacities as well as the city, try to get the word out about that, because it really is going to be a big shift, but we need to let everybody know about it. And then the only other thing was I was down in Ventura for our Coastal Commission meeting last week, and was able to come back in time for a lunch in Healdsburg. Gabby Giffords, our member of Congress who was unfortunately shot and survived and is a huge proponent of gun violence prevention. She was here to talk about gun violence prevention and her work at the Giffords Foundation, and they are going to be the recipient charity of the proceeds of the Ramble Music Festival that we're hosting at the community center in June. So really cool event. And then I'd like to ask to potentially agendize a conversation about endorsing Measure B, the smart sales tax extension, on a future agenda. Is there 2 other people who would be interested in talking about that? Okay, great.
All of this? Okay, great. That was easy.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I'd like to preemptively, if the council consents, take advantage of a clause in the new protocols. This is a perfect example. I mean, you're all supportive of, we don't need to bring this back with no staff work, talk about it, and then bring it back a second time. I think we can probably pull together a resolution for you all quickly if there's support for that.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I can go. I have nothing to report, but I just want to say I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at the parade tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I want to say a shout out to Director Edgar, who did 2 budget meetings this past week. And it was really nice having it at the community center, because we were able to pull in the people from Enzo as well as that community at that area. Good presentation, lots of good questions. Then Mayor was at the senior citizens presentation. Again, not a great turnout, but the people there were really interested in and had a chance to actually ask our budget director questions directly. So it was a very good opportunity for people to participate in our budget process. I attended the Economic Summit at the Flamingo, which was interesting. Sonoma County is doing a little bit better than the state, but it's also disturbing that those at the bottom are only seeing a 0.5% increase in income, and those at the top are seeing a 1.5% increase. So we continue to see that broad spread between the top and the bottom. And then after that economic summit, I went over to being independent location for the housing summit, which was very interesting and nice to see our staff there, people, lots of participation. But to me, the very interesting thing was at the very end, I was in the ADU unit. And they were talking about how with this new state law that you can sell the ADU separately, the question came up was, how does that help with affordability? And it was kind of a silence there because it just didn't really hit on that. So I think we need to continue to work on our infill and things that we're doing to address that housing issue for the middle income housing. And that's all I have to report.
Okay. That's where Hegley, nothing? Okay. All right. I have a long list. Gonna have busy 2 weeks. I'm going to start with the fun one. We had Cron 4 TV station here last Friday, and Ray Hawley, our public information officer, myself, helped them out, set up some stops at local businesses that were within walking distance, and spent the morning with these folks as they reported intermittently throughout the morning on how friendly Healdsburg is. And it was really easy to do, and we had a great time, and the people they just stopped randomly on the street were totally into it. So when we knew that they were flirting with disaster there by doing that, but maybe you run into someone grumpy in the morning, but we found none. And it's just one of those experiences. If you've ever had somebody come to Healdsburg who hadn't been here before, an old relative or something like this, I had this happen to me recently, and you really get to see the town with fresh eyes, and it's hard to see how kind of magical it is. And so that was a really positive experience. And the video they produced for it, if you haven't seen it yet, is really just a fantastic sort of advertisement for how lovely our town is, which we all know. But that was a really fun experience. I went to the Multicultural Center kickoff event at the community center, and the folks from Corazon did a really fantastic job giving an overview of the 3 different phases that they're going to work through as they establish a multicultural center at the Abel de Luna Center, and they are creating a committee for a community advisory committee, and they made a really great presentation about what that committee would be like, and so I just want to put that out there that they're looking for folks to contribute to that, and it was a really great presentation. They're going to take that presentation on the road, so to speak, to different groups. For example, Rotary. I went to their sunrise meeting last week, 7 a.m. Easy peasy. And I gave a talk about the city. It was really great. And they're going to welcome the Corazon folks to do their presentation there. But the Rotary Club is always, a bunch of people who are very engaged in the city and ask great questions. And so I was really happy to have that opportunity. I also went to the budget workshop. It was really helpful to me to help explain it to other people after seeing Director Edgar's excellent presentation. So thank you for that. I was also at the Generation Housing event, and I just want to add that we had a number of people from the Healdsburg Housing Trust there who are learning and participating. And as usual at these events, the conversations in between the presentations are worth the price of admission. And so it was really fantastic to see those people learning and being engaged and making connections. I also met with the Marie Sparks Award Committee, and we have a fantastic winner, top secret, but that happened. I also was at the Gabby Gifford event, very inspiring. Thank you for covering that so nicely. I don't need to. And then the last item I have here, and I don't think this is an agenda item, and I'm not sure how we handle this, but I would love the opportunity to reply to the offer for the council to be the parade marshal, which was very sweet. And so I'm not exactly sure what our procedure should be for that. I don't think there's any resistance to this idea, so we can at least do a straw poll here, right? Yes, okay. So I don't know if that probably doesn't need to be voted on, but what? Yeah, we're good. We're good. Okay, cool. And so if we could formally accept that, I think I'll task city clerk with that job.
We can do that, Mayor Herod, and then we will be in touch about details.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And with that, at 8:24, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. See you in the morning.